saw miracles with cannabis. And I think until you see that true miracle happen, that you really don't realize, wait a minute, this stuff works, truly works from the inside out.
Welcome to the Well with Cannabis podcast, a show dedicated to telling the life-changing stories of those who live well with cannabis, all while teaching you how to do the same. Meet your host, Emily Kyle, a registered dietitian nutritionist turned certified holistic cannabis practitioner. Emily changed her life for the better with the help of the cannabis plant, and now she is committed to helping others do the same. Tune in each week to hear heartwarming stories and gain the knowledge you need to feel connected, inspired, and supported on your own cannabis journey. Whether you're a new cannabis consumer or a lifetime lover, you'll benefit from these uplifting tales of real-life journeys that will show you how you too can live your best life well with cannabis.
Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to share a note on potentially sensitive content. The episodes on the Well with Cannabis podcast are created for adult audiences only. We will at times cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to suicide, abuse, mental illness, sex, drugs, alcohol, psychedelics, and the obvious use of plant medicine. Explicit language may be used occasionally. Please refrain from watching or listening to the show if you're likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. The information on this show is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice. If any of the content on this podcast has brought up anything for you, please reach out or speak to a professional or someone you trust.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Well with Cannabis podcast. I am so excited. We are here with our friend Kimberly Malone from Texas, and she has an amazing story. She is a self-described avid gardener, wellness warrior, and I'm so excited to talk to you, Kimberly. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Now, you have been using cannabis for all sorts of things, and I really am interested in hearing your story and kind of how you got to cannabis in the first place.
I got to cannabis. I'm a recovering alcoholic for over 25 years. And so I had a family member who started using cannabis after an accident and wanted me to, look into it a little bit more. I was a health and wellness coach at the time. So she had asked me to look into it a little bit more, give my opinion and feedback. And at that time, I was living in what I call the sober mind, where you don't use alternative medicine for things, because I had had such a problem in the past. But it's a huge stigma I've had to overcome, because as I was learning more for this family member, I was just completely overwhelmed with all the benefits that were available by using plants. And so in that process, and this has gone on for maybe 8 years now, in the process, I finally started using cannabis myself the last 5 years. And I've been using it for a wide range of reasons. One of them being at the end of my mother's life, I was very overwhelmed. And it just helped to ground me a little bit to get through that end of life process. The other thing was I have had injuries in the past. And so I had pain creeping back up after 30 years. And then at my age of 55, arthritis was setting in and several other things. And so I found that instead of, I'm absolutely against narcotics. And so I found that using cannabis for my wellness to help with the pain actually is what helped me stay grounded and get over the stigma.
That's an amazing story. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. And congratulations on your sobriety. And if you're willing to talk about that a little bit, I would love to discuss kind of how you navigated that, because there are a lot of people in the sober living community who are conflicted about where cannabis can fit into their lifestyle. And would you mind talking a little bit about how you worked through that, how it felt for you?
I don't mind discussing it at all. Actually, I think it's very interesting because I have some other friends that are also sober who use it, who were kind of in secretive as well. But it's really a place where you're comfortable in your sobriety. And I am absolutely against narcotics. And so for me, it was a way to relieve chronic pain. And it was a mental thing for me is really what it is. Each individual person has to go through that. I was a horrible alcoholic, started drinking at a very young age, had my first blackout in 8th grade, was in a terrible a diving accident when I was 23. So I leaned heavily on the narcotics at that point and did that for 5 years on top of drinking in my out of control drinking. So at 28, I was diagnosed bipolar and an alcoholic. And I sobered up and lived that life for a long time. And I finally got to a place where I was comfortable being around others who drank. And that took probably 15 years to be okay with that. Understanding that even though I had a problem, that doesn't mean they necessarily have a problem. And there is something with controlled drinking that is okay for others. And so once I got to that place of comfort with that, it is a long road to get there. And some people may not ever get there, but I was able to. And so after that, and then on my wellness journey that I started in 2016 by going back to school in New York at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, that opened up a whole world for me of so many limitations that I thought I didn't have in my life, but I did. I did so much so that once I found an additional balance in my 40s, I was really able to open up at the end of my 40s and into my 50s.
That is amazing. And thank you so much for sharing that with us, because I'm sure hopefully other people on the other end listening who are questioning whether or not cannabis can fit into their sober lifestyle, hearing that it really can in a really positive and wellness focused way is amazing. And I hope it helps other people. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure. But I do want to add one other thing. Yeah. I wasn't looking for the high in using cannabis. I was looking for how it made my body feel, as far as like the CBD is what I lean towards a lot, because of the pain control it has and not making me feel stimulated. And that's the part I didn't like. And I do use blends of the CBD and THC, but the higher levels of THC with the lower levels of CBD to the lower levels of THC is what works for me. And I think everybody has to find that, but I'm not looking for the high when I use cannabis. I'm looking for relief. And I think that's important for people to understand who might have a problem or might start being stimulated by the THC side. That's a window I think that a sober person has to be very careful of looking at and evaluating for themselves.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you said that for anybody who's listening, kind of struggling on the line. Cannabis use can absolutely be done responsibly in a way that makes you feel good. And it does not have to involve getting high if you don't want to. You have so much control over the way you use it. And so there are so many options out there without the high. That means everybody can at least try it to see if it's right for them.
Yes. Yes.
So
and, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I wanted to point that out because I think that's very important for someone who does live a sober life, because there is the stigma involved. And I had the balloon of stigma with bipolar disorder and alcoholism and a problem with pain pills, that it was really a struggle for me. And I lived a very quiet life doing it for a long time. And then I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I was able to help some cancer friends the last couple of years that were going through all the problems in making product for them, the oils like you do, but in blending the CBD with low levels of THC that was very, very beneficial for them.
Oh my gosh. That is amazing. And I'm so glad that you really kind of thought about it and went for it, because now you're helping other people as well, which I find so many of us in the community, we have to turn around and help others because we've been so positively impacted that we want to share that with other people.
That is true. Very true. And, you're a parent, and then you become a grandparent, and then you worry about stigma and how the grandkids are being raised. But you can also do it in a quiet manner in front of some and an open manner in front of others. And that's what I choose to do with the little ones.
I think that's perfect. A lot of people really struggle. How do I discuss this with my family? And for so many people, you don't have to discuss it with your family if you don't want to. But if you want to, there are ways to have responsible conversations. But, we don't always go around advertising what medications we're taking. So people don't have to go around and advertise if they're consuming cannabis as medicine if they don't want to.
That is very true. And I'm so glad that you have a community out there where you are educating us and helping us to learn more about it and using it responsibly. I think that has helped greatly, and the availability of it on your website.
Oh, thank you so much. Now let's kind of shift off of the stigma and let's turn into wellness. And as a wellness coach, I'm interested to see, do you find that cannabis kind of helps your overall health and wellness? Because there is the stigma that cannabis consumers are lazy and eat junk food and sit on the couch all day. And the more people I talk to, the more they say cannabis is part of my healthy lifestyle. It helps me eat better and exercise better and sleep better. And so I'm interested to hear from your perspective how cannabis has helped your health and how you kind of fit that in with health coaching too.
I started using myself right around the age of 50, and I have actually, I'm in better health now than I was. Some people may laugh if they hear this at my current time who truly know me because I have an injury at the time. However, it has helped me become well, and it has helped me talk to my doctors about it. My cholesterol is lower. My blood pressure is regulated. I love to exercise. I don't sit around and eat. I use it for a little boost. It helps me in the morning, whether I put a drop in my coffee or whether I am eating a protein bite for breakfast, because for me, that is one of my favorite things. I make protein bites and I use cannabis in those. So it gives me a little boost in the morning to kind of get my morning started. And then my morning routine is working out. But with the health coaching that I did and the schooling that I did in the last 6 years, I am able to make better choices for myself. It has helped me control my arthritis. I have to be very careful of being sure that I look at the strains before I purchase them, or look at the product before I purchase them, because I don't use indica. I have high blood pressure. So I think a person really has to educate themselves and figure out what is best for you, because what works for me may not work for you, may not work for person number 3. Every person has to do the education. And the more you learn, the more excited you get. And then the more you want to keep on your wellness journey. And you kind of build your little teams and you get your women groups back together, and you get back into a fun lifestyle that I think many of us as women get out of from our 20s until maybe our mid 40s, is because we're raising children and we're searching for that career and we're running after, those goals that we want to attain. And once we get 45 to 50, we realize, wait a minute, it's time to take care of ourselves again. It's time to get ahead of our health, because when we're not healthy and when we're not functioning well, it dominoes down to the rest of our family. And as I mentioned earlier, I started using around the time my mom's health had got bad. It was in the last 6 years of her life. And I had already lost my brother and lost my dad and both grandmothers. And so I had become a part-time caretaker for about 15 years, and continuing my career and getting more education and raising a daughter who was off at college. And it was all those things. And I actually became extremely overwhelmed at the end process for my mother. And so it helped to balance me out, where I wanted to get out there and walk a couple extra miles or get out there. It was a stress reliever, but with the comfort of not having the pain from arthritis, that the cannabis helped me. It helped my mood, and it also helped physically in my body. But the doctors have said I'm well, and it lowered my body fat. Actually, when I was out there working out, my body fat fell, and doctors were looking at me, and I'm like, I use cannabis. So
we talk about
I have my doctors on board. And
that's amazing.
That took a while to get that, but I'm like, I don't use pain medicine. I use this. There have been times recently with this last injury that I had to go back to pain medicines, and I was fighting it, and I was very upset. But my pain levels got so high that it was affecting my central nervous system. I was having cold spells and spasms. And so you really have to look at your own health and where you are. And if cannabis can work for you up until a period of time, you still have to be wise about windows where you might have to modify in a way that you may have chosen not to do. I don't go back to drinking at all, because to me, that was a very dark hole and a very ugly time for me. And I don't ever want to open that Pandora's box again. I have made peace with myself from there. But when it comes to short-term narcotics, I have had to use them, and I struggled real hard, but I was to the point where I was in the emergency room with pain levels so high. And that is a detriment to my health, because it's affecting my blood pressure, and it was affecting everything about me. I couldn't, brain fog. So the cannabis is wonderful to be able to use to help control it better on a daily life, because I use it twice a day and that's it. I mean, it's extended when you like maybe use an edible form or that type of thing. You just have to educate. And as I said earlier, you've got a great website that gives us all the resources in the world, and just keep digging, keep looking. I follow a lot of brain doctors because brain health is important for me. And a lot of them say don't, a lot of them say do, and a lot of them are still on that teetering. So I think it is an individual choice of what we do.
You are full of so much wisdom. I am soaking up everything you were saying. How did the conversation with your doctors go? You're in Texas. A lot of people are very, very scared to discuss this with their medical providers. What did that look like for you?
I just went in one day and said, I had several doctors wanting to control arthritis that I had with narcotics and sending me to pain management. And I'm like, I do not take pain medication. I use cannabis. And they would look at me. Some of them were on board and, would chuckle and say, Louisiana, our neighboring state, is already doing medical. It's ridiculous that we are so limited in the state of Texas. And it's really, really true that we're limited to really cancer and seizures and that type of stuff. However, I think it needs to open up a little bit. And I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm 53 years old. This is ridiculous that I'm hiding this from my doctors. I'm hiding. I don't hide. I'm an open book. That's part of sobriety, is I'm just open. And so, or for me anyway. So I just went in and said something, and I had several doctors all in a row say, okay, no problem. No problem at all. So
that's amazing. If you can have that experience in Texas, I feel like that can give people a little boost of confidence to have that conversation with their doctors, because I think in our minds, we make it a lot worse than it can be. Most cases, doctors, even if they're against it, they're not going to scream at you and say, get out of the room. They'll just say they're not into it. And then you can go find a new doctor if you want to. But in your case, if they just say, okay, great, you don't have to hide anything. It's so freeing and such a good feeling.
It is such a great feeling. I was really worried with a neurologist I was seeing, and then my rheumatologist that I was seeing, how they would respond. But shrug of a shoulder, and they're like, it's your choice. So do not be afraid of what the choices that you're making, as long as they're healthy and in moderation, and that you are constantly educating yourself. I can't say enough. Sign up for webinars, find good resources. Don't just find the trend on social media. You need to look at truly educational, good resources and just take in the wealth and then apply what works for you.
So well said. Let's talk, say there's a 50-year-old woman listening. She's never used cannabis before. What advice do you give her for the first time giving it a try?
I think really it depends upon, what are you using it for? I think that needs to be the first question to yourself is, what do you want to change in your life? What are you using it for? And then read up. As I said again, education is nothing but wisdom for you or as a person. So educate yourself on why you're using it, but don't be afraid to try. Don't go to the local stores in Texas that are the neon green smoke shops on every corner that sell kratom and all the stuff that I feel is bad for a person. Get quality products. You ship to all 50 states. And I've called a friend of mine in Florida and I'm like, if you're not going to get your medical card, would you please go to Emily Kyle's site and order? But you can order on the sites that you feel. Just make sure that they are legitimate and it's not something that, with the crisis that we're having right now with the illegal drugs coming into our company, make sure you're not putting yourself at risk. Start small. I had a family member that had a terrible accident, was having seizures, and I was amazed at a situation where she used cannabis to get over the middle of a seizure, and she had an MD standing over her that was a family friend, and his eyes were huge. He could not believe how quickly she recovered. And then we were able to leave the funeral and go to a family dinner afterwards, and she was walking around like nothing had happened. I saw miracles with cannabis, and I think until you see that true miracle happen, that you really don't realize, wait a minute, this stuff works, truly works from the inside out.
I'm so interested. Did she used it during a seizure?
During a seizure.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible.
that's when it clicked for me that this stuff really works. And then I got into the research part, and then I got into where can we buy the CBD, but the good CBD. And I was using products like Charlotte's Web or Blue, I'm going to say it wrong, Bluebird Botanicals, possibly. Mm-hmm. I started looking into the products that were available at the time that were CBD, where we could get gummies and we could get tinctures and we could get this. And yes, I became a true believer.
Just to see that in front of your own eyes has to be one of the truly a miracle. That's amazing.
It was amazing, especially being a person of recovery. And I was like, well, wait a minute, this stuff works. I grew up in an era in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s where we had the presidents in the past it's the anti-drug war, and it's, Ford and Reagan and the early Bush days where you're signing all these things, no drugs, don't do drugs. And we were raised to believe that they're bad. And you look at the 60s and all their stuff that they were doing at Woodstock and everything else. But it's happening all over again. And I think people are doing it now with wisdom.
Oh, which I'm so glad. I mean, it's finally time. When we talk about recovery, they're always saying, cannabis is a gateway drug, but other people are saying it's an exit drug. What is your opinion on that?
I would have to side with the exit drug. It is not a gateway drug. For some people, it could be. So I don't want to say that and it offends somebody else or offend a family member who has somebody that has an issue, because for some people it can be a gateway, but I don't feel that I don't feel that it is, because being used responsibly and in the right ways, in the dosage that is effective enough, which for me is not one that gives me the buzz. It's just one that all of a sudden I feel chill and relaxed. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I feel like a world of weight has been lifted off my shoulders. That's what I'm looking for in using cannabis. And I think everybody needs to truly evaluate what is it that they are looking for? Why are you using this? And I think that is a huge question. It's like when I grab a corn tortilla because I want chips and salsa, which is what we want in Texas. A lot of times I don't do well with corn. And as a dietitian, you know that corn can upset sometimes people, just like gluten can upset, just like dairy can upset. And it has to be an individual choice of what you're using and use in moderation.
It's so perfectly said. And it really can be a parallel to your diet as well. We're all making choices on what's best for our bodies. Cannabis is the same way. With food, we can make good choices and bad choices. And with cannabis, we can make good choices and bad choices. And with the education, you are capable of making good choices for yourself. And ultimately I find it like you're ultimately your own medicine man, your own healer. And that really puts the power in a lot of people's hands to take full control of their health and wellness.
That is true. And if you look back in history of all the things, and I'm sure you working with herbs know this, but I got into just herbalism classes and learning, and I got back into American Indian and the medicines that they used from the days. And then you look at the Hispanic culture, and they had medicine people in their days. And so I did some studying under Don Miguel Ruiz and a little bit under Heather Ashamara and some more of it. So I started dabbling in wellness as a whole and looking at it from all sides. And they all had medicine that came in from the different cultures that they used. They were the medicine people of their time. And even the African Americans are pulling out with History Month this month that there were medicine women in those cultures in the 1800s and the early 1900s. And those recipes have been passed down throughout their families. And I think we just need to take a step and look back at where we evolved and where we came from. And it's from plants and it's from our earth. And we can be well if we ground ourselves again and we just connect again with the earth. And I think if we do that as a process as a whole, it just makes our lives a lot more balanced.
Oh, I could not agree more. And I find myself more increasingly interested in herbalism and other plants because I'm like, if this plant is so magical, what are the other plants doing? And it really becomes this passion, if you will, of these gifts are given to us on this earth that we have the ability to explore and enjoy. And it just becomes this whole different mindset of what is possible for health, wellness, and really just where we're at today with our current healthcare system is so far from where we need to be. But I think by having these conversations and making this normal, that plant medicine is normal, I think is really important moving forward.
And I agree with you, because I think people of your generation are going back to farming. I mean, like, you've got your farm there, and you're raising vegetables for your family as well as the cannabis for your industry. But I think that generation is finally plugging back into what my great grandparents and grandparents were doing, and that was using the earth as our medicine. And I think education, I just can't say it enough. Education is where the wisdom comes in. And I've had some people look down on me. I used to be in healthcare. I worked in healthcare for 10 years. And I was in the ER recently, which I mentioned earlier. And I told them, do you want pain medicine? I said, no, I use cannabis. And I got the look. And I just looked at her and thought to myself, she was about my age, like, that is so judgy. Just stop being so judgmental. And I think that's another thing we have to look at is, then again, I had to sit back and go, well, maybe she's not educated. So I think we just need to continue filling our minds with the wisdom, and we need to let go of other people's thoughts and what they think and how they might judge us and all those things. I think we grow up having all that stuff implanted in us. And in the 40s, it's really important to start unlearning all of those. It's again a stigma of what other people think if you make this choice.
And it's so important, I feel like, because once you come out on the other side, whether you come out of the closet publicly or just with yourself and you say, I'm a cannabis consumer, I feel like there's such freedom on the other side. Once you don't care what people think anymore, you don't care what people think anymore. It gives your mind so much more space to care about things that are actually important and stop worrying about what society might say.
It is important, and you can carry that bubble around with you, but you don't have to. I mean, it's so much weight gone when you do, like you said, the freedom. It's just weight lifted off your shoulders, and it's truly free. And then you can evolve into the person that you were meant to be, or that you were trying to become, and it takes you on another shift. I think we do that in every decade, every 10-year span. I think, in our 20s, we go through a period, and in our 30s, we make some changes and go through another period, and we have our ups and we have our downs, but we can't get wrapped up and not grow in ignoring the growth process, because that is growth. And the more we grow and the more we evolve, you get to your midlife, era, and you have all the freedom in the world that you didn't have the last 20 years or 30 years. And it's like, who cares? Who even cares anymore at this age? So learn that freedom younger is all I can say.
Oh my gosh, that is such good advice. Moving forward, what does the future look like for you with cannabis in your life?
I think I just want to continue learning more. I've really gotten into cooking with cannabis and making tea and doing some other fun things. I've done the tinctures and I've done topicals. But I think just to continue exploring the availability of it. And then, like I said, the mixing the blends and having the calculator that you provide has really been helpful, because I was making products and I had no idea how much was in there, But I'm like, well, I do it by feel, or I do it by, that type of thing. And I was like, well, I know, it just expand and explore. And I think I get stuck on those words and the wisdom, but I think for me, it just continues to evolve in what is fun. I mean, make the education side of it fun. Don't get wrapped up in the unknown. Just keep bursting the bubbles.
It is so fun. It turns into all these different hobbies, whether you're growing it, whether you're making things at home. It really can become a really enjoyable part of a lot of people's lifestyle and become a hobby that fulfills your time in a way that feels good.
It does feel good. And recently, I know you were talking about wellness a while ago and I got sidetracked, but I have recently started teaching others on a very small scale. And it's only my inner circle that are interested in learning more about cannabis. I've had them over here with me, and the butter maker, learning how to make the butter.
Fun.
Or, how do you pour it up or make I've been injured in one arm for about 6 weeks. And so I'm like, I need help making protein nuts. I need help making my butter. So I have a very small inner circle that is open to cannabis as well. And so I've been teaching them how to make the products. And for me, that's always fun because I did that when I taught my wellness classes. During COVID, I went online and was able to teach online. But prior to that, I had done some seminars here and there. And, we might make something, like we might make an essential oil, or we might make a, something to put in your diffuser. We would do those little things. And I've always loved cooking, and I'd taken some chef classes. So I wanted to teach meal prep and healthy meal prep and those type of things. But I think all of this being interwoven in the future is going to be fun. I took a step back from health coaching after my mother passed because I had estate issues to deal with for a couple of years, and then took some time off. But I think the doors are open. I just am interested in seeing where it goes. For 2 years, I've been telling my best friend that lives in New York, I was like, we need to do a podcast. That would be so much fun. And then you got knocked off social media, and it just makes me shake my head. I'm like, yes, a podcast. It's coming. So
it's coming.
You said I need people, and I'm like, oh, signing up.
I'm so excited for you in the future. Like, that is the future. I feel like health and wellness, incorporating cannabis. We need more educators who are educated on cannabis, incorporating that and showing other people. I did an interview recently with my friend Janice, and she was talking about how the 50-year prohibition of cannabis took out a generational ability to teach, where grandmothers would teach their daughters and women would come together and they could learn about cannabis, and that had gone away. But now we're seeing that return to it. And what you said, getting together with your girlfriends, just reminded me so much of that, and that we can now share our wisdom, and hopefully they can share it with future generations after us. And it feels really good to come back to that.
It really does. And I think being able to experiment with different things, like making gummies or whatever it is. I tend to choose healthier things to make when I'm cooking with cannabis, because I can make cannabis brownies all day long and eat them. And then I find I'm 10 pounds heavier in 2 weeks instead of in 6 months. And I'm like, that's not going to work. So choosing, like you do as a registered dietitian, the things that work for me and my body and making them into a healthy cannabis product that I can consume and enjoy and know that it's good for me has been fun. So I'm curious to see where this will go. I would love, like you said, to learn more about herbalism. And I've looked at a couple of courses, and I thought I'm going to fly out to Eugene, Oregon and go out there to a company that I use some of their oil products from and some of their spices. And I thought that would be fun. Or Rosemary Gladstone, I have some of her books, and you look at some of her stuff, you're like, oh, I could turn this into a cannabis. So I think it's fun. And I think you're right. Podcast is the way to go, because people nowadays, it's so easy to just pop in an earbud or turn it on in your car and go. But I love the hands-on part, and I love the social aspect of being able to get together with the girlfriends, because in the child rearing years, we still had our group of friends and we still go celebrate here and there. We got together at Christmas, but it's different as you age, because a lot of times your focuses are elsewhere, and you might lose some friends, or you might pick up some new friends. Like I moved in the last 3 years, and I have a neighbor that's become my workout partner, and she is a blast. So I think you pick up new people, and you still have your old people, and you put that whole group together. I put a group together last April, and for a birthday party. I did a birthday party for a girlfriend and mine and I, and we invited like 9 or 10 friends over. And I've had friends for 30 years and 35 and 40 years or 50 years. And some of these people had never met someone else. And I was like, how did that happen? Or we pulled the neighbor who was a newbie in to meet like my core group of friends. And we really had a great time, a super great time. So I think the sharing aspect is important in the circles of friends. And being open to be able to do things is fun and important.
I love that circle of friends. And actually, so many women have talked about how either their first experience with cannabis was because of a circle of friends. It really seems like it's women getting together, sharing their knowledge, and kind of expanding that education out there. And I think that's so special. And I would love to come to one of those events. And I want more of that in the world. Every woman should get together with her friends and enjoy cannabis.
We can say this off air, or you can edit this out, but House of Puff up there where you are would be a fun group of women, the women-based business cannabis people for you to get with the with your RD background
Yeah.
and with them and their openness out there, and it's a women base, I think that would be a fun collaboration. I'd love to see. I'd fly up there and do something with
So
y'all.
fun. I'm excited. They are like events popping up, like a puff and paint, like, the painting where you can smoke instead of drink. And it's really fun to see those events popping up. But I'd love to see you leading some events and bringing women together. It's so exciting what the future holds for cannabis because there's so many opportunities out there.
It is. And I have really thought about the legislative part, like really talking to the Texas legislature on how can we expand. I just haven't taken a step in that direction yet because the last few years haven't allowed me to do that. But I think that may be something I'm continuing to ponder with, because we need to open our doors more in Texas, even if it's for medicinal use. We have too much coming across our border that is not good for people to be dabbling in. And I think it's more important for us to get out there and just get the legislation passed so we can be using it from legal resources that we know are healthy and coming from good growers.
Yeah. Yeah. Which everybody deserves. Everybody deserves access to medicine that will help them in a really positive way. So I hope, gosh, Texas is so hard. I really hope that moves forward for you in the future. Now, I want to be respectful of your time, but I also want to ask you the same 4 questions I ask all of my guests. Are you ready?
I am ready. I've got my notes here, so
perfect. Awesome. So, the first one coming up, what are you most proud of?
I think as I've aged, and it's really been since I turned 50, that I have found more love. And it's not just love for others, because I'm a big lover of other people. It's finding that true love for myself, because the self-love part and the self-discovery part and peeling back the layers of the onion to get to the root cause of why am I so emotional about this, or why does this make me so irritated? I think that's been a huge part, is the love, because with that comes the gratitude and grace. And that part, even in the last 5 years, is still unfolding. It's still unfolding. So I've really reached deep for some good teachers, Heather Eshamara, Don Miguel Ruiz. There is Sarah Blondin. She's one of my favorite. Before I married, we've been married now. This will be 3 years. I read one of her books, and it had chapters, and then it had meditation. So you could read the meditation and then listen to the audio. And it was a book on love, and it's really love from within. And that took me in so many stretches. So I think it's the love, and it's the forgiveness. It's all the things that come with self-love.
That is so beautiful. What do you think your life would look like without cannabis then?
Actually, I think I'd be in a whole heck of a lot of pain. And I would have aggravation, and I'm really not sure how I would have gotten through some of the panic attacks I was having when my mom was in her last several years, because I knew it before the doctors told us. She had just been battling some health issues. And so it was trying to hold it together for everybody else, or hold it together for me, or being strong for her. So I think, I don't know that I would have relapsed on the alcohol part, but I just think it could have left me kind of dark, or just a grouchy old person that was a couch potato. And that's not healthy either.
Oh, I'm so glad you found cannabis. If you could go back 10, 20, or 30 years ago and give yourself a piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, my childhood was amazing. I had wonderful parents. We traveled a lot. We had a lot of fun in everything that we did. Our family lived in Europe. Well, I say our family. My cousins, my aunt and uncle and cousins lived in Europe. So we were able to travel back and forth. So my childhood was amazing. I started beating myself up a lot in my teens, and then dabbling into drugs, and like every other teen does, and drinking a little bit, and then getting in with some of the wrong crowds. And I wasn't one for college, which is kind of part of your story, but I went, and then I played, and then I dropped out, and then I played some more. And I just got into a real bad spiral with my life. So I think in your 20s, it's very important for a person to realize that choose your path. I mean, our parents have a path for us and they want the education piece, but we also have to choose our own path. I ended up doing my education later, and I made it a goal to graduate from college before my daughter graduated from high school. And I started going back to school in my 30s and was able to do all that. But I think it's important to reach and to explore life and be able to reach and attain some goals. But I also think you need to not beat yourself up and then learn. I think that there's management skills that are missing for people to be able to manage in their 20s. And of course you want to, because you're an adult now and you can live on your own. But I think there's some management tools that have got to be learned. Oh, girl, there's so many things. Reading and education, even if it's not in school, I think reading and education. But once we get to our 30s, I kind of have things broken down, the 30s, 40s, and 50s on things that I would give tips for.
I love it.
And I don't know if you have time for all of those or.
Go, please. Yes.
Okay. So for my 20-year-old self, I think it would have to be stop comparing myself to others so much, because I did a lot of that. A lot of my friends are getting married and I'd never even graduated college. I was still partying. So I think you need to remember we are all on a different path, and we can all still attain things as we get older, but we don't have to follow the norm. We don't have to do that. And I think you got to remember your family always, because they're there to support you even when you disappoint them. And even they're there to celebrate you, even, with the good things that come. So family is just vital to me. And we can have our own family, but we can also expand that family into our inner group of friends. And just keep your chin up, because life is a heartache. And as I mentioned earlier, it has every decade, I think as women, we go through significant changes. And I don't even think we know who we want to become till we're in our 30s. And we think we might know who we want to become, but we really don't, until there's something about our 30s that changes and you're really an adult at that point. And you start sinking in with, okay, these are responsibilities. And if you're married or if you're a parent or whatever, you just have to sink into that adulthood. And it is a journey, and it's a lifelong journey. It's not a journey that you're going to get on, or a path that you're going to get on and you attain that top, that is not the end of the road at all. So don't think you go from step 1 to step 5 and that's where you're supposed to be for the rest of your life. It is not, because we get in our 40s and 50s and you have all these different paths and you're like, should I take that one? Should I take this one? Should I go back to school? Should I learn this? Open and expand your mind, and do not be afraid. At least try. At least try something new every year. Read a new book every year. Just keep educating yourself. Pop on podcasts. Pop on, there's so many great wellness or research or different types, whatever your interest may be. There's so many classes out there available for webinars. And I think you just need to hop on and not be afraid to learn and expand. I did marketing, business relations, public relations, business development, all of that stuff for years. I grew up in sales. My family had a car dealership, so I grew up in sales and PR and customer service. And then all of a sudden I'm like, but I love wellness. I love fitness. And I've gotten off the fitness train, and have so much good advice for other people, but I need to start learning something that resonates with me that I can apply in my own life, because we can be totally educated, but until you apply it and truly apply it, that's what I've spent the last 3 years doing, is really applying the education that I had received from several different resources and truly applying that in my life, and journaling and putting that pen to paper, because you can think it all you want, but till you put that pen to paper and you have a tracking mechanism, it just opens a whole nother level of wow with yourself. And that's that inner discovery, which leads to self-love. And I think that is so important, that we truly love who we are. And if you don't like who you are, change. You can change. You can keep changing every year if you want to. Just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try. Whatever. If cannabis is your thing, then great. If it's not your thing, that's okay. At least you tried it.
Oh my gosh, I'm soaking up all your wisdom. I love it so much.
And I think too, finding your inner child. We forget that fun childhood playfulness that many of us had. Some people didn't have that, but I think many of us did. Or that playfulness you had when you got to go off to college and not be under your parents' roof. It's the playful side as we age into our mid 40s and 50s and on from there, that you truly have to find again, and you can. And that's been a fun journey. Go hiking, be active, be outdoors. Do you resonate with the water? Do you resonate with the forest and the mountains? I mean, what feeds your soul? And let yourself dive into that at least once every year. And step away from work. That's the other thing I can't say enough about. I have friends that still stay with me when they travel, coming through East Texas to see family. And I'm like, put the phone down, put that laptop down, unplug. It's past 5 o'clock, 8 to 5, stop. Because many of us get into where that workaholism. And that's not a filler. It's not good mentally. It's not good physically. It's not good emotionally. And we learn to bring it home. And you have to learn to shut the door and separate work from your family life, your home life. Because when you don't, and you let those spill over into each other too much, it just becomes uniform, and it's going on 7 days a week. And then you never have your time. And we all need our time, that downtime. And we have to refuel our soul. So find what does that for you and do it as many times as you need to do it. Just keep doing it. Fill it up, because you lose your smile. Yeah. And you lose your joy. And you can find it again, even if you lose it, but you got to find it. Yeah. Oh, the fitness side. Oh, Lord have mercy. Can't even take it. Yes. Fitness over 40. I mean, even if we lose it or even if we stick into it, fitness in your 40s, fitness in your 50s, and fitness on from there is, I think, vitally important. And some people may roll their eyes, but moving your joints, whether it's walking, whether it's Tai Chi, whether it's yoga, your joint movement at 54, almost 55, I can tell you, is extremely important. And your flexibility, because when you lose that type of stuff, you literally can't do much anymore. And we don't want to be that way. That's not fun, because being inside is not fun. We got to be outdoors.
No.
Got to be outdoors.
Oh my gosh. Like I said, I can listen to your wisdom. Everything you're saying is so spot on. And I really am so thankful that you're sharing this with us, because I feel like everybody listening is like, oh, keep talking. But I'm going to get to our very last question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Very last one. If you could be remembered for one thing in the cannabis space, what would it be?
Oh, in the cannabis space. I've heard that question.
I know. I kind of threw it a little edge on that one.
I think just trust your journey. Trust it. I could be remembered sharing it with others. I think that's it. And the way I share is, this may not be right for you. It may be right for you. I don't push it on other people. I let them come to me with it. But I think be remembered for the wealth of education and the love. I think that's it. And being open about it.
Oh my gosh, you gave us all of that and more today. I can't thank you enough for coming here, sharing your story, sharing your wisdom, and just sharing that general love for life. I just feel so energized talking to you, and I'm so glad that you found cannabis and that you shared your journey here with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun. My husband came in this morning. He's like, I'm taking a picture of you because you're back on the computer working again. And I'm like, shh. Close the door.
Anyone. Oh my gosh. I am so glad you came here to do this. And I'm excited to see what you do in the future. I mean, it's a big, wide world out there, and you should be teaching some classes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
That may be where I end up, and we'll just have to see.
The future will see.
Congratulations. You've finished another episode of the Well with Cannabis podcast, and are one step closer to discovering how you too can live well with cannabis. Thank you for listening in today. We hope this episode has been a helpful and informative one. Please visit EmilyKyleNutrition.com for more information on today's show notes, guest information, recipes, and other resources. If you want more support and encouragement on your cannabis journey, please consider joining the private Well with Cannabis community. In this group, you can connect with like-minded individuals focused on improving their health and wellness through cannabis. Join the group today to continue your journey of wellness together at EmilyKyleNutrition.com.